You are Locked On Falcons POSTCAST, part of Locked On Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Podcast, your home for the best Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere else but right here at Locked On. I am your host, Tenitra Batiste, and of course, alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Aaron Freeman. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn opens in a new tab to get started. Well, we call this episode of this show Field Goals, Fumbles, and Fantastic Defense on their way to first place. The Falcons somehow, some way eke out an absolute win. And when I say it, it's kind of like somehow, some way they eke out a win, but the road to it was very interesting, very up and down, in and out, right, guys? So let's talk a little bit about that. So Jarvis, top takeaway for you. Damn good defense.
Absolutely, man. Because here's the thing. When you think about what this defense, the transformation that this defense has gone through, and the questioning of whether or not they have people who can rush the passer, or the guys in the secondary, or going out and trading for a guy like Younghoe Koo, and whether or not you're going to get any return on value on that aspect of it, the pointing out of spending $15-16 million on a safety, whether or not that's going to be able to help you. But the bottom line is, this is what Terry Fontenot built this defense to do, and that is basically win them, literally hand the Falcons a win, hand the Falcons the lead in this division. And when you think about what they're able to do today, and now granted, they played, there was a lot of give though, when it comes to Baker Mayfield and all that stuff. But I just love how they didn't allow those guys to actually run the football. Now, granted, they've been an awful running football team in the first place, but the way they came out and did to shut down the run, they made the Tampa one-dimensional, and they were able to get home too. They were able to get home. I just love seeing Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. Those guys were selling out against the run. They were just out there making plays. I just absolutely love what the defense did today. That's the only reason I haven't lost my mind, and my blood pressure is still decent right now.
I know, right? And another standout where you wondered 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks ago, oh man, Troy Anderson was trending up, and all of a sudden, no more Troy Anderson. But Nate Landman has truly answered the call throughout the time that he's been in for him. 12 tackles today, 5 solo tackles. So he's another one that I feel like from a defensive perspective really made his presence felt. Now for you, Aaron, your takeaway was that the return of the run game is here.
Yes. Absolutely. Falcons run for 156 yards on the ground today without Bijan Robinson. He got his first carry at the end of the game, just basically with the Falcons just running out the clock. Mm-hmm. He was feeling under the weather. I guess we'll get an update after the game from coaching staff on, whether this was his flu game or whatever, but we didn't get to see him out there on the field, but it didn't matter because Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson, it was nice. Hey, it was like, hey, CP, hey, nice to see you.
Hey, you can still play football.
I've seen you do this for a couple of years now, and it was nice to see the run game get going, for the most part in this game, and had one of the best rushing games that we've seen from this team against a pretty physical Bucs defense that very few teams have been able to successfully run on this season. Yes. And we haven't really seen it from this Falcons run game since week 2. When they dominated the Packers on the ground. And ever since then, it's been we're going to talk about Desmond Ritter in a second. It's been riding that Ritter roller coaster because, the run game is not been the sort of stable foundation of this offense the last month. And it was nice to see that it was that stable foundation today because they were on a Ritter roller coaster, and it was not particularly fun. But it was nice to see the run game get back to form.
Indeed. And yeah, I love it because that's exactly what I talked about wanting to see. I thought that Tyler Algier needed to have more of a presence. I think we all wonder where CP was, but I definitely was excited to see. And granted, it could be because as I keep looking, and I'm sure you guys are looking with bated breath to see what Arthur Smith is saying in the postgame about Bijan Robinson, just giving a little more context to he's not well. but ultimately you still have to show and prove when you get in the game. And I believe that Tyler Algier did his job today. 21 carries, 59 yards, not a lot as far as the average 2.8, but it was important yards when the team absolutely needed it. Cordell Patterson with 10 carries for 56 yards, a good day for him as well. And of course, Des Ritter on the ground a couple times when they needed him to. That might be his happy place. Okay, watch yourself, Jarvis. Hold your tongue, Jarvis.
I told y'all I'm in a good mood, so we don't need to talk about him right now. Like we're talking about not yet. We're gonna get to Desmond Ritter, but yeah, we don't need to talk about him right now. Like I'm still kind of processing that
which we've
I know
seen.
what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
But to the point about Cordell Patterson, I just want to kind of touch on that for real quick, T. I think that the way he was running the ball, it was just so physical, and it was almost like, yes, Arthur Smith, I told you I'm healthy. I told you I can get out here and do my thing, man. So to see him get out there and run the football the way he did, and I just love how I don't know about y'all, but I really like Mark Schlereth. I really like him as a commentator. I just think he doesn't take himself too seriously. Right. I think he just kind of does football the way I think football commentary should be done. And just the way he was just describing just how Cordell Patterson was just leaning in the guys and mushing guys and leaning forward and running over cats towards the end of the game. That's what Arthur Smith wants. That's what he envisioned this offense to be. When the game is on the line, you're driving down the field, and everybody in the stadium knows you're going to run the football, and you're still able to get yardage. And that's the thing that I like to see, at the end of games, because I know that's the vision that they have for this offense, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. And Cordell Patterson was executing time and time again in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I think you get there in the fourth quarter because you were committed to it in the first, second, and third quarters, right? Yep. And we know that when we look at this, the box score, if you will, you can look at the box score and you can see, and again, I'm going to hold my tongue on it, but you can see 19 of 25 for 245 passing yards. I'm going to be quiet after that. But ultimately speaking, what won you this game is your defense. What won you get this game is your run game, and what got you to 16-13 is Younghoe Koo. Dude, we got to at least have some conversation about him, because he's not that he's had a whole lot of hiccups, but he had a couple this year that kind of made us scratch our head like, is Koo not Koo? Aaron, you said it's the return of the run game, and that was just a reminder that Koo is that guy.
Yeah.
Is that guy. When you saw, 51 yards, he's hit a 54-yarder. It's like, feels like a money shot. Yeah,
it's weird stressing about Falcons kickers because it's been such a problem that we haven't really had. And because we've seen a couple of misses from Koo, it's like, this will be the week that Koo misses his field goal. And then he makes it. It's okay. All right. Like, the Falcons did everything, or one player did a lot to try to lose this game today. And it was just like, all right, like the world is not going to end. Like everybody else is doing their thing. And it's that one guy, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah. If 21 players, meaning, the starters go and do what they do. Well, okay, 22nd player.
So you know what? I thought you were going to give me an Outcast reference, because I thought you were going to give me a return of the Koo. You know what I'm saying? Like return of the gangster. You know what I'm saying? I thought you were going to go flow with me there on the whole Atlanta reference thing. But like it was really cool to see Koo get his thing, get the ball in his hands, because he was just like they had, ran the balls a couple times. I was like, man, we're gonna settle for a 50-yarder? Like, this what we're gonna do? I was like, because just the flow of the game and how things were going, it was just like, man, I don't know about this one, but like Koo was up there psyching himself out. You know what I mean?
I mean, were they supposed to let the 22nd person pass the ball?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, my bad. I'm sorry.
Saying.
Yes,
so
sorry.
Just go on and run it.
Correct.
All you do is edge a few yards off the kick.
Yes.
Safety. Oh, but you know what? One more positive before we wrap up and switch over. I wanted to mention this as well. This was a game where we also finally saw the defense really put themselves in position. You talked about the sacks and Jarvis, and obviously they got 3. The tackles for loss, you have 5, but it was important as well for the Falcons to be able to get turnovers, because that was the one thing, kind of the missing piece. The 2 missing pieces, Aaron and Jarvis, the 2 missing pieces were sacks and turnovers. And so it was good to see both of those really come be actually a critical part of the storyline for this particular game.
Yeah, T, because I think, you mentioned, Nate Lemon with the 12 tackles and 5 solos. That doggone forced fumble. Like, I'm sitting up here watching Nate Lamon ever since he stepped into the starting lineup.
Back in.
Has anyone ever mentioned Troy Anderson since he's been gone?
No.
Has he? Like, have we even had a reason to even talk about Troy Anderson being gone since Nate Lamon stepped into the starting lineup? So I feel like he needs to get as much credit for, the guys that Terry Fontenot as well needs to get as much credit for, bringing in all of these guys and then also bringing in a guy like Nick Lemon, last year. So I think these are some of the things that, like, this is some prime, like, roster building right here on the defensive side of football. And I think that it needs to be acknowledged because Lemon has come in and more than exceeded anyone's expectations who haven't really been paying attention.
Yeah. And when it comes down to a game that when you start to dig into the stats and you look at first downs and all of the other stats and it's like dead even, there's got to be that one thing. There's got to be that one thing. And that one thing can be a turnover. That one thing can be a sack. That one thing can also be, as we saw at Younghoe Koo, having the ball in your hand with 45 seconds left and being able to pull out a win. So we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to go into the deep dive, but Aaron and I, we're going to have to hug it out with Jarvis before we go into the deep dive. But in the meantime, we're going to let him go to another happy place and talk to you guys about eBay.
Folks, Jarvis Davis here for eBay Motors. This episode of the Locked On Falcons POSTCAST is brought to you by eBay Motors. Because guess what? I'm telling you guys, the thing you need to worry about is eBay Motors as far as when it comes to getting your stuff. Because our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. I'm telling you guys, Vinny is on point. You need to check this guy out, whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire. Every week, we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has this week for us as eBay's guaranteed fit fantasy picks of the week. All right, guys, Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson will come off a bye and build on his momentum with an improved Zach Wilson to have a big game against the Giants in Week 8. Start spreading the news in the New York battle. The Giants secondary cannot cover him well, and it has already given up big games to guys like Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs. Garrett Wilson is a great talent, and the Jets are now back to using him as a dominant number one wide receiver. So I'm telling you guys, look for him to keep coming through with his best all-around game yet in 2023. And another thing, guys, when you talk about the fantasy football and scouting that waiver wire, I'm telling you, this is where you need to go because the fantasy picks of the week, talking about Garrett Wilson, is the place that you need to go. Another guy that you might need to take a check in on, how about this? 49ers tight end George Kittle has had ups and downs with his big games for fantasy, right along with some disappointing disappearing ones. That's more based on the design of San Francisco offense, which has many mouths to feed and is looking for the best matchups to best use Kittle as a wide receiver. Week 8 presents a golden opportunity at home for a Kittle game against a Bengals pass defense that is good at cornerback, but suspect with its safety and linebacker coverage. So make sure you guys check out Vinny with the eBay Sports Fantasy Pick of the Week.
Well, there's a guy that probably won't make next week's eBay read about fantasy football. And I'm going to tell you guys a little something about him from last week that you can marinate on. And listen, you guys know I am not one to just fall back and let you guys go at it. But Petty Tenitra will allow that today. So that said, Desmond Ritter, we had this conversation last week. The question was, did he take a step back? There was a delay with 2nd and goal at the 1.5 yard line. That cost him. An interception at 3rd and goal. That cost the Falcons. Scotty Miller could have walked into the end zone one time. He didn't see him. And we thought, okay, that was your worst performance. But hey, you can bounce back. You're still kind of in your rookie space. Except today, Desmond Ritter's 2-yard run capped a 58-yard drive to start the game. with a touchdown. Good Des. Ritter unloaded a 39-yard pass on what would be the game-winning drive. Good Des. Okay, Jarvis and Aaron. Then there's the in-between. Bad Des.
You know what?
You need a hug, Jarvis. You need a hug.
See, here's the thing about Desmond Ritter, right? Like I know everybody want to throw all of this developmental stuff, stacking games and all that stuff, and he's still developing, or he's only played in 11, 12 games in the NFL as a starter. He is technically still a rookie. But here's the thing, though. I'm talking about the bonehead plays. You just got the ball as you're running away from the defense. You have a defender coming over you, and you got the ball on your inside hand. Like, when did we learn that once you break free, you're supposed to switch to the outside hand, right? Because you're
acting as a running back at that point. So you need to do running back thing.
You've been running the football.
Yeah.
Like, I even tweeted out during the game that whole RPO on the goal line is 100%. It's been
we talked about that as well. Like, I was like, when we're going to get some RPO, maybe that would be good for him. Okay.
Yeah. So my whole thing is just like, when are we going to eliminate the bonehead plays? I'm cool with an interception. I'm cool with a fumble when you're trying to fight for extra yards and somebody comes over from over the top and knocks the ball out of, knocks the ball out of your hands, something like that, and they recover it. I get that stuff, but like not switching hands and getting and keeping up the ball out of harm's way, or if you're going to keep it in the hand, at least have it secure and not assume that you already in the end zone and everything is all good. And then the play with Drake London, right? Like, this is where I almost literally lost it. I almost lost it. The play with Drake London, trying to figure out if that's a fumble or not. And okay, I saw some little white paint pop up, so maybe his right hand did graze the grass or whatever, so he was out of bounds. All right, cool. Falcons got the ball. They're on the half-yard line. And a fumble snap. You fumbled a snap? Like, you don't stand there as long as you possibly can and ride that doggone center's behind as hard as you can without him feeling some kind of way about you, and make sure you get that football. Like, what are we doing? Like, I just don't understand that, T. And that's the type of stuff that the bonehead stuff I will not accept. I will not accept that stuff. Those boneheaded plays. The throw out of the you talking about you supposed to throw the ball out the back of the end zone against the Washington Commanders, and you throw it right to the defender just sitting right there chilling. Like, no, that stuff is unacceptable. I don't care how many years or how many games you played in the NFL. That stuff is just not acceptable. And that's where I'm at with Desmond Ritter. Like, I'm not going to accept this crap. The boneheaded plays, I'm not going to accept it. An interception, maybe you misread it, something like that. Okay, I get that. They throwing something at you didn't necessarily see in your preparation. Okay, that's cool. But the boneheaded stuff, that is unacceptable. And I'm tired of watching that. Like, it is getting so frustrating to the point where, like, dude, what are you doing? You're literally giving the games away, literally.
Yeah, because you go from 3 picks to 3 fumbles, and it's like, okay, where can we trust you with the ball in your hands? And Aaron, this is not something that you should be seeing so frequently, because my thought would be, and the thought, this is basketball as well, or football, you always hear these guys that stay in school for longer, they're supposed to really have the fundamentals of the game down pat. So I would have expected
that's what they sold us on.
There it is.
Experience.
I would have expected a 4-year starter not to make these kinds of moves, because I promise you, I called the game with a D2 team yesterday, and I didn't see that guy do that one time. Because what? Those are just, Aaron, those are fundamentals.
Yeah.
That a 4-year starter in college should be able to have mastered.
Yeah, what frustrates me is, like, because I think when you look at the game, like, Ritter did some good things. Like, it was like, oh my God, he hit Scotty Miller on the deep ball. And it's like, oh, I haven't seen this at all.
Right, because that didn't happen last week. When he could have. So.
And he didn't turn the ball over there, although there was a couple of times where Levante Davis jumping some of those throws. I'm like, okay, we got lucky there.
Right.
But, like,
and he hit Van Jefferson. So, okay, you hit your deep threat.
Yeah. So, like, what's frustrating to me, especially on that fumble out of the end zone that resulted in a touchback, is I think it was 2 weeks ago against Houston where he ran it in and he fumbled the ball. Someone knocked the ball out as he was crossing the plane. But fortunately, like, he held it just for like that split second he needed. And so, like, this goes back to the conversation, because I think Matt Ryan brought it up on the broadcast last week, and I've heard other people bring it up. It's like, if you're making new mistakes, like, that's part of the development process. But when you're making the same mistake, and the fact that he made that same mistake, not securing the ball going into the end zone 2 weeks ago, is why, to me, it's so frustrating. Because it's like, if this had been the first time that it happened, okay, like, he's not a runner or whatever, you got to learn that stuff. But as you're talking about, T, where, like, this is not the first time Desmond Ritter's been a runner in his life, you know, like, you know, like Baker Mayfield, when he breaks that run, like, you can tell, like, Baker Mayfield don't run for a living, right? Like, he was like,
he was looking at the scoreboard to see if somebody was behind him. Like, he was like, man.
But like, when Ritter's making these mistakes, and when he's making the same mistake again from like 2 weeks ago, like, that's where it becomes super, super frustrating, where it's just like, you should be better than this. And like, he didn't play a terrible game, but it was just like, he did just enough to lose the game for the Falcons. And it's just like, that's the thing that's so frustrating, because even though you could look at the entire game and say, like, yeah, he, you know, for 20 out of the 25 throws, he did the thing that he was supposed to do. And you would say, in general, that's a good percentage to have. But it's those other 5 throws where he made the mistake, or in this case, the fumbles, that really just, like, it just cost you the game. That you know, this is a game, like, I remember commenting at halftime to my subtext subscribers and Locked On Falcons insiders, like, this is a game that should feel, it was like, you know, 10-10 or whatever it was, and this game should be like 24-3. Like, the Falcons should have been rolling in this game, because like, the Bucs didn't do anything in this game, and it just felt like, because your quarterback just kept making just that one dumb decision or whatever that cost you points, it became this game that went down to the final second.
And you know, the other piece there is this, Jarvis. You brought back that particular O-line. That's a consistent O-line. You've had the same center over and over and over again. So the O-line came to play, because I know we've been talking about that, especially kind of, you know, us scratching our heads a little bit on Chris Lindstrom, not kind of understanding, you know, why he wasn't that Chris Lindstrom. But I mean, they gave you opportunities. They did their job today. Otherwise, you would not see the 156 yards rushing that we saw. So if you have the consistency, the same guy has been under center the entire time you've been starting, and your O-line did its job today. Where is this coming from? I mean, and I know we're postulating, but where could this possibly be coming from?
It's mental. That's the only thing I can see. I mean, that's the only explanation I have, unless
you think he's in his
Drew
own
Dahlman,
head,
huh?
You think he's in his own head, like, even though he tries to be poised at the podium, you know, maybe it's like they say, the ghost of.
Yeah, I think that for me, like, sometimes I feel like Desmond Ritter doesn't have any self-awareness. Like, you know, I hate to try to get deep on this thing, but it just seems like he doesn't quite understand, you know, certain moments. Like, now we've seen him come through in the fourth quarter, you know, down by 12 points against the Green Bay Packers, and he seemed like he was locked in and all that stuff. But it just seems like these past few games, there are moments where more than likely he's going to have a mental lapse or just a half a second. Like, and I think with him, he's not talented enough to be able to have that. Like, you have to say super focused, locked in 1,000% of the time. And I think that we see those moments like come to fruition, whether it be not holding up, securing the football when you're going in for a touchdown to basically seal the game because your defense has been playing absolutely amazing. And you know Tampa is not going to come back for you with 4 to 5 minutes left in the game. So just stuff like that, that's where I feel like he has those little moments where he just loses it. And that's the only explanation I really have for it, T, because it's consistent. He's been consistent with it in these past few games.
And that's why I asked that question. And I mean, Aaron, when you think about and I love that word, consistency in a bad way, like, where do you think it's coming from for Desmond Ritter? Especially because he does have those moments. Like, you'll have a moment like he had with a Drake London or Kyle Pitts, right? And you're like, ooh, But then it's these other moments where you are so confused. I mean, what do you think this is, Aaron?
Yeah, I don't like being an amateur psychologist. So, normally you go to school for that for 4 years to do that. But like, it does feel like what Jarvis said. Like, it's just not, he's not locked in, right? And it's just like these just simple mental lapses. And fortunately, it didn't cost the Falcons today. And unfortunately, he made the throw at the end that he needed to make to win the game. But it's just, like, again, like, part of me wants to be like, hey, if you take away some of these turnovers, he was better today on the road than he was the 2 previous games. So it's like, are we going to talk about Road Ritter next week? But Road Ritter still kind of shows up because of these mental lapses. So it's just like even when he makes progress, it feels like it's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So it's just tough to sort of figure out. And you're just hoping, I guess, that like with reps and experience, like these things are going to go away. Yeah. But it's just so frustrating in the living through it, the ups and downs. Again, the roller coaster analogy. It's like all right, I guess. I guess we'll just I guess we'll figure it out next week. I guess
we'll figure it out next week. Yeah, that is probably the best way you can put it. The roller coaster that is Road Ritter, the roller coaster that is Desmond Ritter. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it when we come back. But first things first, Jarvis is here to tell you guys about FanDuel.
Folks, this episode of the Locked On Falcons postcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is the #1 sportsbook in America. Guess what, guys? For all you new customers, for all the people who have been slow to try to go get to some of this money, I need you to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now, because new customers get $200 in bonus bets. What are bonus bets, Jarvis? Bonus bets are what you can use to bet on the spreads, the over-unders, the money lines, and all that good stuff. And this bonus bet's going to be guaranteed. All you got to do is place a $5 bet. So yes, I need you to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now, because it is super safe. It's easy to use. You don't got to worry about anybody stealing all your information or anything like that. So all you got to do is go to that little bar at the top of your internet box right there. That search engine right there, and put in FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season, because FanDuel is the official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL.
All right, guys, we always like to bring our fans in. I know Aaron was talking earlier about chit-chatting with some of the guys through subtext and kind of getting some feedback, especially kind of the head-scratching feedback that you got at halftime. So DJ Stud 1987 says, I really wish Art can add some screen game to this offense. With these running backs in space, they could make this offense better and help Ritter out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that if you don't do it to Keith Smith, sorry. Yeah, like get it to the guys who can do something with it in open space. That was that was a head scratch.
That was very clear to me at that moment that Bijan's out there to be a decoy, because Bijan was on the field and they ran him out in Keith Smith in the same direction. Ritter's throwing it to Keith Smith, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? And you thought today against the Bucs, who blitzed a lot, and I guess the Bucs didn't bring as much pressure as they usually do in this game. We'll see what the rewatching it, but it didn't seem like they were dialing up too much pressure on Ritter throughout this game. And you would think that this would have been a game where some of those screen passes would have been very effective dealing with that blitz.
Indeed. And Aaron, just an update there from our girl, Tori McElhaney, who, of course, will join us on Monday with the Atlanta football party. She did say Arthur Smith said Bijan Robinson, quote, wasn't feeling like himself after pregame warmups. We weren't going to overdo it, unquote. And then she said that Arthur Smith said they'll know more tomorrow. So just a little bit of an update on Bijan. And we'll get more tomorrow, and probably ahead of our show tomorrow. So we'll be able to talk about the potential impact, whichever way it goes, with Bijan. But that's a great comment. Like you said, it could work if the screen game went through the right hands. If you need the player for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that when you look at that, it's just like running the football, the toss sweep to Cordell Patterson, just like when you're trying to close out the game. I don't necessarily think you should have been in a 2-minute offense. Maybe you should have been in a 4-minute offense, trying to get a first down, and then just being in the mental space once you get into the red zones. Those one sequence right before going into halftime, like there was not even an attempt at a throw towards the end zone or into the end zone. Like it was just, those are just some of the things that just make me like question, sometimes, because it's just, I just don't understand it. I just didn't understand it in that moment, because the Falcons are in a space where they can't afford to have these type of mishaps, especially when the only way you're going to get into the postseason is through winning the division. And I think that, thankfully they were able to pull it out, but like, you got to give this type of defense some grace, because like they've been playing so well for you. They've been keeping you in games, giving you opportunities to score more, and you have to start cashing in on those bad boys immediately.
Right. And to Christian Bowen's point, he says we're the only team that crucifies their player constantly. He said, Des Ritter made some good decisions and he had an excellent game. Now, I can't agree with excellent, because if you fumble the ball 3 times the half-yard line isn't even the low red zone. You might as well call that the end zone. So when you're doing something like that, I can't agree that that's excellent decision-making or excellent presence of mind. That's situational football gone wrong, right? And so, he does show shades of knowing what's going on and sort of the gravity of the moment. But then those moments happen, and we don't bash him on this show, and we're not the ones that this isn't the show where Falcons get bashed, but this is the show that tells the truth. This is the show that's going to tell you what the eye test shows us. And then we'll come back on the football party tomorrow and we'll deep dive a little bit more after we've had an opportunity to kind of watch pieces of the game again. But we're not here to bash him, but we are here to tell the truth of what that performance was. And those ugly moments that were sandwiched between the opening drive and the game-winning drive, they happened, Aaron. They happened.
Yeah, and look, I said it before, like, there were good things that Desmond Ritter did in this game, but like
Absolutely.
the fact that the bad things that he did, took points off the board, right?
Yes.
And that's the reason why this game was a 16-13 win, as opposed to like a 30-13 win that it probably should have been. So it's not to sit here and again, because we sit here and we're critical of a thing that obviously I think most people are being critical of like, this is why we're like sitting here barely eking out a win in a game that the Falcons, for the most part, outside of maybe a quarter and a half, kind of dominated this game for the most part, did all the things that they want to do, and yet they still almost found a way to lose this game in the end. And that's not simply because Desmond Ritter played an excellent game. It's because Desmond Ritter played a very up and down game. And again, as we talked about before, those ups and downs proved costly, the downs especially today, that potentially could have lost this team the game very easily.
And guys, forgive me, I know we only have a minute left, but wanted to end on a positive note, because a win is a win is a win. 16-13, you're in first place in the NFC South, and you've improved to 4-2. The Falcons have. You guys hit on most of the defensive players that stood out today. I don't know if we hit on Jeff Okudah. I don't think we talked about him, and I just wanted to kind of throw that out as we wrap up. If you guys, Jarvis, if you wanted to kind of say anything about his performance today.
I mean, like, we've seen him continually get better week by week, because Ryan Nielsen was speaking to like how surprised he was, how he was able to come back so quickly, and you see some of the bursts. You saw the breaking on the ball. Now you got a little handsy from time to time, but like those are the type of penalties I'll probably be okay with, because you're being aggressive. Yes. That's Ryan Nielsen's attack and aggressive. That's what he preaches. Those guys sleep, wake up in the morning and saying attack and aggressive. So I don't have a problem with that. So yeah, the way he played today, it kind of gives you like a nice little peek into the vision that Terry Fontenot had for this defense, man, especially in the secondary, because this is. Yeah, I really feel like Aaron and I talked about this on Locked On Falcons, on the Locked On Falcons podcast, and I talked about like this was going to be probably one of their biggest tests, just from a wide receiver duo standpoint. And outside of that 40-yard touchdown to Mike Evans,
held him in check.
Exactly. And gotta give credit what's credit's due.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. We'll talk about it more tomorrow on the Atlanta Football Party. So we appreciate you guys stopping by the Atlanta Football Postcast. Don't forget, tomorrow you got Jarvis, you got Free, you got Tori, and you got me. Come back and we're going to break this game down further. Again, congrats to the Falcons for the 16-13 win over the Bucs. See you tomorrow.